In Pokemon Pocket, every time you have to flip a coin, chaos unfolds. So I decided to rank the most chaotic cards in the game in a massive tier list. From best to worst, this is every single coin flip card in Pokemon Pocket. I want to begin with a really easy one, regular Exeggutor. Just how good is this coin flip Pokemon? Regular Exeggutor is a stage 1 Pokemon, meaning you do have to evolve it. Whenever you have to evolve something, you need 2 cards to make this happen, a couple turns to set it up. That's gonna dock it a little bit. But with 130 health for a stage 1 Pokemon, that's pretty good, and it only needs 1 energy to use its move. So far, this thing is already B tier. Just from that, it's got a lot of health, it only needs 1 energy. This is a really great stally Pokemon that can maybe harass your opponent while you're setting something up. I like it. Now, the rules say flip a coin, if heads it does 30 more damage. This means this attack is very simple. It has a 50% chance of doing 30 damage, and a 50% chance of doing 60 damage, for an average damage of 45. Farfetch'd can do the same amount of damage for 1 energy, and doesn't have a... this is pretty bad. 3 energy retreat cost? Oof. If the whole point of using this thing is so you can set up, you want to retreat it, get it out of there, and bring in something else later, right? Just sacrificing it puts you in a weak position. Your opponent can Sabrina this thing in and hurt you. I don't like that big retreat cost, so I'm gonna dock it. I'm gonna say this thing doesn't go any higher than B tier. You know, the retreat cost is pretty bad. The attack damage is pretty weak. It's just kind of a big tanky thing to annoy your opponent, but I probably would not use this in a game. Alright, I'm gonna just put that in B tier. It's not very good. It's not very good. I wouldn't really use it. Alright, let's take a look at the EX version, though. The EX version of Exeggutor, right? So this thing is 2 prize cards when you knock it out. It's twice as valuable. But it's got 160 health. That means Mewtwo cannot one-shot this thing without Giovanni. Pretty good. I like that. Lots of health. Only a stage 1 Pokemon for that much health. That's crazy. Tropical Swing now does 40. Flip a coin, it does 40 more. Okay, so this is just a better version of the same attack. The average damage is now 60. It'll do 40 minimum, 80 maximum, 50% one way or another. I think the damage is still a little bit too low. I like that it can survive a hit from Mewtwo without Giovanni. Giovanni makes Mewtwo one-shot this thing. And I like that it just takes 1 energy to get this thing swinging. In theory, since it could do 80 damage, this could threaten other EX Pokemon. Potentially, it could potentially win a fight with other EX Pokemon. But it's... And for much less energy, I like it more. Even though it's a bigger risk, you know, it's 2 prize cards, I like it more, because I think it has a lot of health. You could survive a Mewtwo hit and then finish off Mewtwo, right? But you still can't retreat it. You still can't retreat this thing. That's bothering me. I'll raise this thing up a tier, but I think we're still in a little bit of trouble with this guy. Yeah, I'll go ahead and put that one in A tier. I like it a little better, but still not that good. Still not quite good enough just yet. Okay, so Pinsir. This is one of my favorite Pokemon. I used this Pokemon a lot before I got good cards, because this Pokemon actually threatens to do 100 damage. Unlike the Exeggutors, it's a basic Pokemon. You can get this thing with Pokeball, you can play this thing turn 1, it's just a basic Pokemon, which makes it really easy to get, right? I like that. It's got 90 health, that's a lot of health for a basic Pokemon. We're already B tier. We're already B tier. The retreat cost is 2. That's doable, right? It's an energy plus an EX speed, or 2 EX speeds. You can retreat this thing. It's not impossible to retreat like the crazy Exeggutors. Now, the attack itself is a little bit weird. We need to talk about the attack itself. It takes 2 energy. That is a big cost. And you flip 2 coins and it does heads for each coin. That means you have a 25% chance of the attack whiffing. It does 0 damage. A 50% chance that the attack does 50 damage, which is pretty good. And a 25% chance it does 100 damage. In theory, if you get very lucky and attack it early, this thing could take out a Mewtwo EX. Potentially. If you get lucky, this thing could take out a Mewtwo EX. That's insane. Just the fact that it could potentially do that. It's usually not going to do that. The average damage of this attack is 50. It's super inconsistent. It has a minimum damage of 0. It could just get 0 damage over and over, right? I wouldn't bring this thing to a tournament. But if you're a casual player and you just need a card to help you win games once in a while, this card is great. It's fantastic. It's an amazing card. Lots of damage, lots of health, easy to play. A tier for sure. A tier, absolutely 100%. Now, I'm going to put it ahead of the Exeggutor EX, because I think it serves a role even better. If you're a beginner player and you don't have rare cards, Pinsir can win you games. So, A tier, definitely. And let's take a look at Skidoo, just cute little Skidoo. This is a very simple Pokemon. 70 health, okay, that's not bad for a basic Pokemon. 1 retreat cost, I like that. Surprise attack does 40 damage and doesn't even need a particular colored energy, so you could put this into a multi-energy deck. That's some nice utility right there. Flip a coin. If tails, this attack does nothing. Ew. Ew, gross. Okay, no, it's awful. Terrible card. Here's the problem. This card has an average damage of 20. 20! That's so bad. That's so bad. It's like half a Farfetch'd. This card is half of a Farfetch'd. Seriously, why wouldn't you just play Farfetch'd? It has a minimum damage of 0. Alright, yeah, no. I'm sorry, I think this card is F tier. It's just, let me put Farfetch'd on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. This is Farfetch'd, okay? It's the exact same Pokemon with 10 less health and no Coinflip. Why would you play Skidoo? Why would you play Skidoo? The only reason to play Skidoo is so you could evolve it into Go-Go-Goat, who's also not so good. So, I'm not feeling Skidoo right now. Unless Go-Go-Goat is like the best card ever, and I don't think it is. Unless Go-Go-Goat is amazing, Skidoo's bad. Skidoo's just bad. Alright, yeah, F tier. I'm sorry, worse Farfetch'd. Just worse Farfetch'd. Okay, so we're moving on out of the plant Pokemon. We're getting into the fire types now. Yeah, this Pokemon is fire. Vulpix. 50 health, not so great. Tail Whip. Flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon can't attack during your opponent's next turn. Ooh. Okay. Okay, so this is interesting. Because you can make yourself invincible. You can make yourself invincible. That's pretty good. You use this move, you get lucky, your opponent can't attack at all. This is like the best stall card in the game. I think like Dugtrio can do that, but that's an evolved Pokemon, right? For a Pokemon that's not evolved, this sounds amazing. You can just stop your opponent from attacking you, potentially for several turns in a row. There's a 1 out of 4 chance to just freestall your opponent for 2 turns for 1 energy. I mean, obviously that's not going to be very good in a tournament, right? You know, that's not going to be very good in a tournament. But just for a coin flip card, you know, a card just about, you know, you get lucky, something cool happens, I think that's really good. One thing I'm wondering, though, if I retreat the defending Pokemon, do I still get to attack? Let me look that up. Okay, so as near as I can tell from researching this quite a bit, the defending Pokemon always means the Pokemon hit by the attack. If it retreats out, we eliminate the status effect. So you can actually get around this by retreating, which makes the card less good, because you have a 50% chance to have this effect, and then they can retreat out of it. So based on that, I don't think this is that good of a card, but it can stall for a little while and potentially has some use. I'm going to say B tier, which I know is very ambitious, but hear me out. This card can potentially permalock your opponent. And I think coin flip cards aren't about what they do on average, because on average, they're usually bad cards. If they're good cards on average, they're going in triple S tier. But on average, coin flip cards are usually bad cards. But I think they're about what can theoretically happen in an emergency. Getting a chance to win when you might have had no chance at all, right? I think that's the point of these cards. So I'm going to put it in B tier. All right, we'll just drop it right in there. It's not that good, but it has options, and I think that's what you want in a coin flip card. Alright, Moltres. So, Moltres has a lot of good stuff. 100 health and 1 retreat cost automatically makes Moltres a good card, even if it didn't have any attacks. For those stats, 100 health and 1 retreat cost, you could just put this in front, you know, build up something in the back line, and then retreat this thing out of the way, out of harm's way. I like it just for its stats. Basic Pokemon, good health, good retreat cost. But we take a look at the attack, the Coinflip attack, it's pretty bad. Sky Attack does 130 damage, but flip a coin if tails it does nothing. So, on average, this attack is doing 65 damage. 65 damage for 3 energy is awful. Awful, that's terrible. I mean, Golduck does 70 damage consistently for 2 energy, right? This is so bad. So, but Golduck is an evolved Pokemon, to be fair. But like Pikachu, for example, you know, Pikachu, we're talking 90 damage consistently. And though that's an EX card, you know, but it's still, it's just not competing with everything else on the table. It's just not competing right now. There are better cards than this. And the fact that it can do nothing means if you bring this into a tournament, you're going to get nothing a couple times. And 3 energy is so bad. 130 damage can't even one-hit Mewtwo. Alright, you're not one-shotting Mewtwo. You're just not. You know, you can one-shot Pikachu, but who cares? Pikachu can one-shot you right back. It's just not good. I think that this card is B tier, and you use it for its stats, but you don't ever try to attack with it. You just retreat it out of the way. This card is a blocker, but you don't want to use its attack. It's just too bad. Welcome to B tier. Population, most stuff, which is kind of how it should be, I guess. Ooh, I like this one. Moltres EX. Alright, let's look at this card. It's an EX card, 140 health, which is pretty good. You know, it won't survive a one-shot from Mewtwo, but it will tank a hit from Pikachu EX. It could survive Pikachu EX. That's pretty good. 140 health is nice. Alright? 2 retreat cost. Not the end of the world, but for a basic Pokemon with this much health, that's pretty good. Alright. It has access to Heat Blast, which is pretty bad. You know, 70 damage for 3 energy. That's not great. I wouldn't use it. But it's Coinflip attack. Flip 3 coins, take an amount of fire energy from your energy zone equal to the number of heads, and attach it to your bench fire Pokemon in any way you like. That is fire. No pun intended, that is fire. Alright? Here's what you do with this thing. Okay, here's what you do. You make this the first Pokemon you put out. It's got 140 health, it'll easily tank like Farfetch'd, Kangaskhan, all that, it'll tank that for a few turns. You give it an energy, and you use Inferno Dance to power up your back line. And then when you're done, you EX speed retreat this thing, you know? That way you only ever have to put 1 energy on it. Great card. By flipping 3 coins, we make it really likely we'll get at least 1 heads. Really likely. Like, the odds of getting no heads at all is 1 out of 8. So 7 out of 8 times, you'll get at least 1 energy. 7 out of 8 times, you'll get at least 1 energy. And 1 out of 8 times, you'll get 3 energy, which is insane. Okay? If you could, on your first turn, if you're going second, put an energy on this thing. Flip 3 coins. Put 3 fire energies on your frickin' Charmander. Then evolve that next turn into a Charmeleon, give it another, you have 4. And then next turn, give this thing another energy, retreat it into Charizard, and then start Crimson Blasting everything. It's like, this thing is the ultimate power-up assist Pokemon for fire types. And it is actually a little meta in PvP for the purpose I'm describing. It's a great card. Because, I said it before, if Coinflip cards are good on average, they're OP. This card is good on average. On average, it generates 1.5 energy every time you use Inferno Dance. That's amazing. So it'll almost certainly regain the energy you spend on it on turn 1, and then use it again on turn 2, and you've probably net 2 energy. It's great. Really small chance this thing fails you. 1 out of 8 chance it fails you. That's not that bad. It will probably happen twice in a row in a tournament. I hate to say it, you play a lot of games in a tournament. If you're playing a tournament, this thing probably will fail you twice in a row and mess up your whole strategy. But it only costs 1 energy to do that. You can retreat it. It was still a good tank for you while it was out there, even if Inferno Dance fails because it has 140 health. Love this card. So much value out of this card. I think this card is our first S tier, if not triple S tier. I'm going to put it in triple S tier because I think giving this card an energy is, on average, always a good idea. Like, this card is just really great as a starter for a fire deck. It's amazing. It does great stuff. I've got to put it in triple S tier. I gotta put it in triple S tier. Yeah, the odds of this card being bad are so small. The odds of it being good are so big. And even if you fail the coin flip, it was still a useful tank. Great card. Triple S tier. Alright, we are on to one of my favorite cards in the game, Kingler. I love this card. This is another one of the cards I use when, for some reason, I can't use the X Pokemon, or before I got good cards. I love Kingler. First of all, KO Crab is such a funny name for a card. It's like a hilarious name for a card, KO Crab. The way it works is you flip 2 coins, and if both of them are heads, the attack does 80 more damage. So I want to be clear, alright? I want to be clear. It'll do 80 damage no matter what. It'll do 80 damage no matter what. But you have a chance, a small chance, to do even more damage. You could do 160 damage. The reason that's a big deal is because it will one-shot Mewtwo. Are you with me so far? You can one-shot Mewtwo EX with Kingler. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? It's such a good card. I used to use this all the time before I got good cards. Now, there are some things we need to knock it for. There's some bad points, though. Alright? It's a stage 1 Pokemon, so you have to evolve it. Right? Costs 3 energy. Now, it is a water Pokemon with Misty, and we'll talk about Misty later. It's a little easier to get energy. So I consider that more 2 energy rather than 3. It's really 2 energy. But still, that retreat cost is awful, right? That retreat cost, you know, you're going to fight until you die with that retreat cost. 3 energy retreat, ooh. And 120 health isn't that great, you know? It can survive a hit from Pikachu EX, unless Pikachu EX uses Giovanni, and then you're just dead. Not the best card in the world, but, I think it's good because for a noob player playing noob player matches who's having trouble killing Mewtwo's, this card has a chance to win you the game. This card has a chance to kill Mewtwo in 1 hit and win you the game. And for that reason alone, I think it's a good coin flip card. Now, I'm going to put it in A tier. I'm going to put it at the top of A tier. I feel like S tier and triple S tier are things you could bring to a tournament. I don't know if you could bring Kingler to a tournament, but I do know that Kingler can win you matches as a new player. So definite A tier material. And we'll revise this list at the end, but I think A tier for right now. Seaking, and we've got another awful card. Horn Hazard. I'm not looking at anything else, because Horn Hazard, that attack, looks very familiar. Flip a coin, if tails, this attack does nothing. This card has an average damage of 40, so another Farfetch'd failure, and it can do 0 damage. The fact that it could theoretically do 80 damage for 1 energy doesn't matter. It's a more inconsistent Farfetch'd. And it's a stage 1 Pokemon, so you have to evolve it. The only thing I'm liking about this is it's got a lot of health, it could theoretically do 80 damage, it's a cheap retreat cost, and cheap energy. In theory, you've got a really weak water deck, you could put this in your backline, swap it in on something, and try to finish it off with Horn Hazard. But I feel like if you're going to evolve something, why not just do a Golduck or a Starmie EX? There's so many better options in water. Plus you have Misty, so, you know, 1 energy is less important. It's an evolution that only has 100 health. I can see that this card has some good value, right? Some good value, but I think it's a pretty bad card. I think it's a pretty bad card. I'm going to put this card in C tier. It has some utility, but a lot of stuff does its job better. It has Farfetch'd damage, it's inconsistent, and you have to evolve to use it. I just don't like it. Regular Articuno. Okay, so this one is weird. This one is weird. 1 retreat cost is good. 100 health is good for a basic Pokemon. You know, when you have 1 retreat cost and a lot of health, tank. Easy tank. Great tank. Already this thing is B tier. It's already earned B tier just from stats. Ice Beam. 3 energy. That's a bit of a cost, but remember, Misty exists. It's a water Pokemon. We'll give it a little bit of slack. Alright, so 60 damage is not much for 3 energy. Flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. Paralyzed is pretty good. Paralyzed is a very good condition. If your opponent, like, just can't do anything, they can't attack you, they can't run away, that's really good. So, even though it's a coin flip, I feel like half the time your opponent can't move. So this does more than 60 damage because you'll probably hit your opponent twice, so it's more like 120. It could potentially do 180. If you get really lucky, you could take down a Mewtwo with just this, even if the Mewtwo's at full power, right? You could take down a full-powered Mewtwo with this if you get lucky and they keep getting paralyzed, right? It's not even bad odds. 1 out of 4 chance. 1 out of 4 chance. You bring this thing on a Mewtwo EX, you attack it, it's paralyzed, you attack it, it's paralyzed, you attack it. 180 damage. Even if it has a potion, it won't survive. If it does 2 potions, you Giovanni. So yeah, this thing is a 1 out of 4 chance of switching in on a fully powered Mewtwo EX and knocking it out. That's crazy. That is just flat crazy, 100% awesome. I love it. This is a good card. This is a really good card. I think this is an underrated card, actually. This is S tier. This is S tier, if not better. I might even put this in triple S tier. Let's put it in S tier for now, because I know there are a lot of really good water cards that could be a little better than this. Like, I don't think Articuno is necessarily, like, meta, but maybe it should be. Just thinking about it, this card is so good. Alright, I'm gonna put it in S tier for now, but it's so good as a coin flip card. Yeah, this isn't really a competitive tier list, right? This is a coin flip tier list. So I feel like as a coin flipper, a 1 out of 4 chance to take out a full-powered Mewtwo is nuts. As a basic Pokemon, yeah, triple S tier. It's going in triple S. I've convinced myself, triple S. Alright, we're on to the electric Pokemon. Electabuzz. I call this Electabuzz. I don't know where I get the R from, but it's Electabuzz. Alright, so 70 health isn't bad for a basic Pokemon. 2 energy, 40 damage, and flip a coin. If heads, it does 40 more damage. Okay, so minimum of 40, maximum of 80 is really good. It's an average of 60. If tails, this Pokemon does 20 to itself. Okay. So, very, very risky. Very, very risky. But it has good health, low retreat cost, which I like. 2 energy to do this is a little iffy. I don't think this is a bad card. It's just not a very competitive card. It doesn't really hit any thresholds. It'll nuke itself when you miss. And if it hits itself with 20 damage, you won't be able to heal that, right? Because your turn is over. So a 50 damage Mewtwo EX basic attack will knock you out. So yeah, I think that this card is a little iffy. But as a coin flip card, it's solid. It has the potential to do a lot of damage, but potential to do 80 damage on a coin flip. It'll do a minimum of 40 for 2 energy, though. Good retreat, decent energy. I like it. It's all around good. It's not strong, it's not weak. I feel like this is maybe A tier, B tier, somewhere in there. Yeah, looking at the other cards I put in A tier, I feel like they have the potential to win you games. Electabuzz doesn't have the potential to win you games. Not really. I think it's at the top of B tier because it's all around good, but it doesn't have the potential to win you games. Actually, Vulpix has the crazy permalock power, so that's at the start of B tier, but Electabuzz is right under Vulpix. It doesn't do anything crazy, but it's all around pretty good. Jolteon. Ooh, I like this one. Flip 4 coins, 40 damage for each heads. What? Wait, that's insane. How have I never seen this card before? Whoa, wait. That's what it does? Why haven't I used this? Alright. Hold on. Wait, I didn't even know that. This thing could do 160 damage. Whoa! Okay. So, whenever it's flip 4 coins, there's a lot of probability we need to discuss, right? This thing has a chance, oh my goodness, hold on. One coin flip is 1 out of 2. 2 is 1 out of 4. 3 is 1 out of 8. 1 out of 16. This thing has a 1 out of 16 chance. A 1 out of 16 chance to one-shot Mewtwo EX. Wow. A 1 out of 16 chance to one-shot Mewtwo EX. And a 1 out of 16 chance to completely whiff. The odds of either of those things happening are pretty low. It's most likely going to do 80 damage for 2 energy, which is pretty good. When you think about it, Golduck, which is water 2 energy, so even easier to get, Golduck does 70 damage for 2 energy. This thing does an average of 80. It has the potential to one-shot a Pikachu EX. It has the potential to one-shot a Pikachu EX for 120 damage. You just need 3 heads. Right? That's not bad. That's not even bad. Alright, so a short bit of math research and probability research, because I actually didn't know how to do this off the top of my head, surprisingly. It says that it's a 5 out of 16 chance. 5 out of 16, that's about a third. So about a 1/3 chance to one-shot Pikachu EX. And a 1 out of 16 chance, much less likely, to one-shot Mewtwo EX. I like that it has a 1 out of 3 chance, sort of, to one-shot Pikachu EX. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It is a stage 1, you have to evolve it, but I think this thing is amazing. It's got crazy potential. It's a little fragile, but for 1 retreat cost, 2 energy, the damage is insane. I don't know why more people aren't using this. Like, wow. I think it's just because Electric has so many good cards that people are sleeping on this. But this thing is nuts. S tier for sure. S tier without a doubt. And the only reason it's not triple S is because better Electric cards do exist right now. But this card's amazing. Yeah, everyone's sleeping on this. S tier. Definitely. Amazing card. Alright, Zapdos EX. This card needs no introduction. You've probably fought it in tournaments. It is very, very similar to the card we were just looking at, which is one of the reasons that surprised me that that card was so good. It's an EX card, right? 130 health, but if it goes down, your opponent gets 2 prize cards. Really easy to retreat. It has Peck for 1 energy and Thundering Hurricane for 3 energy. And the idea is, you put this on your bench, you absorb damage while you're powering up your Pikachu EX. You swap it out for Pikachu EX, right? Very good card. Quality card. Again, it's flip 4 coins, but it does 50 damage for each heads. So you could one-shot Mewtwo EX with 3 heads instead of 4, meaning that it has a 5 out of 16 chance of one-shotting Mewtwo EX and Pikachu EX. Great card. And it has a 1 out of 16 chance, you get all heads, of one-shotting anything in the freaking game. It could one-shot Venusaur EX. Like, this card could theoretically one-shot anything, right? This is a meta PvP card. It's just good. It's got great health, low retreat, consistent damage. Even on its coin flip, it has consistent damage, and it has Peck to finish things off in an emergency. And it can one-shot anything in the game for 3 energy. There's nothing else to say. This is an amazing card, and the fact that Jolteon is anywhere near this without being EX is one of the big reasons I think Jolteon is crazy good. It's just Jolteon can't tank and is stage 1. That's the main reason it's a little lower in S tier. But yeah, Zapdos EX is ridiculous. Without a doubt, triple S tier. And I'm noticing a theme here that some of the legendary birds are in triple S tier. I doubt that's a coincidence. The creators of this game had to know that. They had to know what they were doing. Okay, Electros. This one is iffy. This one is very iffy. There are a lot of things I don't like. It's a stage 2 Pokemon. 140 health is not a lot for a stage 2 Pokemon. If you're stage 2, I expect you to have more than 150 health. I expect you to live Mewtwo EX's ultimate attack. And it can't do that. It's a stage 2, but it gets one shot by Mewtwo EX. Why would I want this card? Why would I want it? 3 retreat cost? 3 retreat cost? That's awful. You put it in, you never get rid of it. So what's good about this? 3 energy, also awful. Thunderfang, 80 damage. For 3 energy, that's a little expensive. Flip a coin if heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is paralyzed. Okay, so while the flip a coins if heads your opponent's active Pokemon is paralyzed thing is good, we talked about that a little bit with Articuno. This thing is so much worse than Articuno, right? It's just as expensive energy-wise. It costs 3 energy, right? Same as Articuno. But Articuno was a water type with access to Misty. This is an electric type. It doesn't have the same access to energy that Articuno did. So it actually costs more energy. Its retreat cost is way worse. Its health is only 40 more, but it's a stage 2 Pokemon. Articuno was basic, which means you can play it right away. This thing you have to evolve. It takes up evolutions, take up room in your hand. Because if you want a stage 2 Pokemon, you have to have 2 copies of the stage 1 Pokemon, and they take up room in your hand. And, you know, you draw them when you don't want them. So it just does so many bad things to your deck. I feel like as good as the Coinflip effect is, this card is not good. This card is just not good. It costs too much to try to play this card, and it doesn't give you enough value as a stage 2 Pokemon. The retreat cost is abysmal. It's awful. I don't like it. I really don't like it. I think this thing fails as a stage 2 Pokemon. It's like if this thing was a stage 1 Pokemon, maybe, but as a stage 2 Pokemon, no. This is bad. I think C tier. It's an amazing Pokemon, but its stats are so bad, it's going to lose you so many games and be so frustrating. I don't think we even get to the coin flip most of the time. And then when you do, you get tails and it just is useless. And I don't know. I'll be generous and put it in B tier because it's not as bad as frickin' Seaking, but it's not that good. Definitely the low end of B tier for sure. It's just too expensive. Okay, Heliolisk is easily one of my favorite Pokemon. In that I use a lot. Like, it's a really easy to get. It's 1 diamond, so everyone has access to this guy. It's super common. 1 retreat cost, amazing. So easy to retreat, just runs right out of there, right? Now, it does take 2 energy to attack, but flip a coin. If heads, the attack is 40 more. So, for 2 energy, you get a 60 average, right, damage attack. Not that good. But considering it's stage 1 with 90 health, you could theoretically do 80 damage. You know, if you hit Mewtwo EX twice, you might be able to get it out 1 out of 4 times. It's just a really handy electric evolution. Low retreat cost, decent health, pretty easy to activate, only 2 energy. I like this card. And it's common. I think for a beginner player, you could even bring this into a tournament theoretically. But for beginner players, it really helps you build out your electric deck, like a good electric deck early on. I think this is A tier for sure. It could theoretically end up in a competition and you wouldn't feel too bad. I will probably use this in a competition. If I can't get more Zapdos EXs, I'll probably use it in an electric deck. Yeah, A tier. Definition of A tier. This is a really good value card. I'm gonna plop that right in there. Whoops. Yeah, kind of the back of A tier. It's good value. Pinchurin. Alright, so Pinchurin. This is a little bit of a weird one here, Pinchurin. And just adjust it a little bit. Pinchurin's a little bit of a weird one. It's a basic Pokemon, 70 health, you know, decent health, 1 retreat cost. Good stats. I like its stats. 2 energy for a 30 damage attack is pretty bad, but flip a coin if heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. I've seen people bring this into tournaments and do pretty well. Because a paralysis is pretty good. It only costs 2 energy. And with an electric deck, you could theoretically get to 2 energy without that much of a problem. But I don't know. I feel like you put one of these, maybe, in an electric deck. Just to help power up your Pikachu EX. And then if you're really losing, you bring it in and try for a desperate win. The thing I don't like about it is that it only does 30 damage, right? So you attack, your opponent is paralyzed, you attack again, you've only done 60 damage. That's not that good for 2 energy. I feel like you could switch something else in for 2 energy and also do 60 damage without worrying about the coin flip, right? And maybe you could theoretically get it up to 90, 1 out of 4 times. They get paralyzed twice, assuming that, you know, they can't find a way out of it somehow by evolving their Pokemon, for example. But I don't like this card. I don't think it provides that much value most of the time. I think it's really hard for new players to use. And I think the benefit of coin flip cards is they're either good, always good, or they give you an emergency chance to win, or they're good for new players. It has to do one of those things. This card doesn't really do very many of those things. It's not that good. I guess it could give you an emergency chance to win, theoretically, but it does so little damage that the odds of it succeeding are low, right? Because if you're losing, you probably don't have energy to dedicate to this guy. It needs 2. Let's say you could dedicate 1 and then bring it in, use another, right? So emergency energy drop. Let's say you could do that. 1 out of 8 times, you can paralyze 3 times in a row. 1 out of 8 times. So 1 out of 2 the first time, 1 out of 4 the second time, 1 out of 8 the third time. 1 out of 8 times, you paralyze 3 times, you attack 4 times. If you attacked first, you've done 120 damage. That's not bad. That means 1 out of 8 times you could assassinate Pikachu EX at full power using just this. I think that's a good emergency win condition. I don't think that's a terrible emergency win condition. I don't think it's great for new players, but I think it has some competitive use, weirdly enough. And I've seen it in tournaments. So we're going to put this thing in S tier, I think. Yeah, let's put it in S tier. Let's put it in S tier. I think that's fair. Hypno! Oh, this is a fun one. I like Hypno. During your turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. So Hypno is awful, but amazing at the same time. 2 retreat cost, 100 health for a stage 1 Pokemon? That's okay, I guess. 3 energy for a 50 damage attack? Not great. But its power is so good! Once during your turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. So if a Pokemon's asleep, they can't retreat, right? They can't retreat, they can't attack. It's like paralysis, except you get a chance to wake up. So let me break this down for you. You use Sleep Pendulum on your turn. Your opponent's asleep 50% of the time. Let's say you get heads, they're asleep. So 1 out of 2 chance they're asleep. Now they get a chance to wake up. So 1 out of 2 chance they wake up. This means you'll only catch them with this 1 out of 4 times. But since you can pull this from the bench, you can have Hypno on your bench, putting Pokemon to sleep. 1 out of 4 chance to stop your opponent from being able to do anything is amazing, right? Plus, there's another 1 out of 4 chance that they just like stay asleep or something, right? 1 out of 2 chance at the very least that they stay asleep and then have to flip the coin again and wake up. So you even get better odds like every next turn. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I wouldn't ever attack with this thing. I wouldn't ever give it energy. I guess you have it as part of like a Gardevoir deck or something. Maybe you could power it up, but then, this thing's taking up slots with because it's a stage 1, But yeah, I think this is a hilariously amazing coin flip card, and it could just shut down opponents. It's not competitive, because it's stage 1, it can't really fight, it's not great with retreat costs. It would probably just take up room in your Gardevoir deck, honestly. I don't think it's that good. But as something you sit on your bench and mess with your opponent's Pokemon, this thing is great. It's amazing. I love it. A tier for sure. This is fantastic. Just put your Pokemon asleep without ever leaving the bench. This is great. Yeah, A tier. A tier for sure. I'm even going to put it ahead of my beloved, just behind my beloved Pinsir, because I think it's got that much potential. No, but Exeggutor EX is a little bit competitive, so that has to go in front. Okay, I think that's fine. Yeah, I like the way we situated A tier. Golurk! Oh, this is another one of my favorites. I used Golurk before I drew Mewtwo EX. I used to play around with Golurk. It's so much fun. And it works really well in a Gardevoir deck. Alright? I know this thing is okay, there are a lot of reasons to hate this card. Super high retreat cost, right? 140 health isn't bad for stage 1. Super high retreat cost. Insane energy cost. 4 energy? But hear me out. Hear me out. Here's why this is good. Here's why this thing is good. Flip 2 coins, 100 damage for each heads. 1 out of 4 chance it does nothing. 50% chance it does 100 damage. 1 out of 4 chance it one-shots anything in the game. 1 out of 4 chance, as of right now, it one-shots anything in the game. Nothing's got more than 200 health right now, to my knowledge. There's no card with more than 200 health. So you have a 1 out of 4 chance of one-shotting anything in the game. Plus, the fact that this thing is psychic means you could use a Gardevoir deck to give it its missing energy. and it has an average damage of 100, with a 50% chance of getting that. With 140 health, you know, unless you're up against a full-powered Mewtwo EX, you'll stick around for a few turns with 140 health. You'll at least get 2 turns to try this, right? So you got decent odds of knocking out your opponent. It's not even an EX Pokemon. They'll only get 1 prize card for killing this monster. So in a Gardevoir deck, if you don't have Mewtwo's, this is amazing. This is amazing. This is a great card for beginners who have Gardevoir but not Mewtwo EX. It does crazy damage. I really like it. I think this is a fantastic card. A tier, no question. You know, I use this card a lot. I use this card a lot. Definite A tier. Well, I used to before I got better cards. Actually, I still use it. What am I saying? I still use it in, like, my diamond deck. Like, I have a deck for beating cards with just, like, low-level diamond cards. I still use it for that. It's so good. Alright, we got Dugtrio. Let's go. Alright, Dugtrio is a funny one. It's a stage 1. Again, you know, a reason to question it. Only 70 health for stage 1. That's so bad. That's so bad. Why don't I play Kangaskhan? You know, it's like, why don't I play Farfetch'd? It only does 40 damage. Now, some good stuff. 1 energy, 1 retreat cost. Pretty good. But what's the Coinflip effect? Because so far this card is garbage, right? So far it's a stage 1 with not enough health. Low retreat cost is nice, but it doesn't fix it. 40 damage is not much. Flip a coin. If heads, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage from and effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. So, this is amazing because normally you can get rid of status effects by retreating. But since Dugtrio is my Pokemon and not my opponent's, even if they retreat, I'm still invincible. I'm still invincible. So you have a 50% chance to become invincible. That's pretty good. I've said this before, a good coin flip card will give you a win condition when all hope has failed. Becoming invincible is a win condition when all hope has failed. Now, yeah, your opponent could still Sabrina you, right? Your opponent could still Sabrina you. There are ways around this, but it's hard to get around this. You have a 1 out of 4 chance of being invincible 2 turns in a row. That and you deal 80 damage during that time. You could deal 120 damage during that time. You come in, invincible, attack again, invincible, attack again. You could take out Pikachu EX before taking any damage. That's insane. That's insane. Now, it's stage 1. It doesn't have much health. And if you don't become invincible, this thing's going to fall really fast. But with 70 health, it could theoretically survive a few lower damaging attacks. I think it has potential. And I think it does fulfill the conditions of a good coin flip card. I think this goes in A tier. I don't know if it could be used in a tournament. Maybe. But it's definitely got potential. And some big weaknesses. So I think A tier is fair. A tier is fair. Alright, there we go. Marowak EX. Alright, I need to show you some footage. I need to show you some footage for Marowak EX. Okay, I can't just put the card... For most of these, I'm just going to put the card on the screen. For this one, I need to show you some footage. Because I had some fun with Marowak EX in my first ever Pokemon Pocket tournament. Okay? I just watch what happened. I'd love a chance. Can we win? No way. This is insane. This is insane. How does it keep happening? How does it keep happening? I just got another double heads. I don't know if you saw it, Sparky, but it just happened again. I was massively losing, and I got double heads and knocked out their EX Pokemon. Now I'm sharply winning. They're surrendering, or they don't realize what my Pokemon does. Well, just one. Yes, we got it. GG, we won. Wow. Wow, we were getting clobbered. Marowak saving the day with wonderful luck yet again. Oh my goodness. Marowak EX is insane. Yes, it's a stage 1 card. It has 1 retreat cost, which is fantastic. It can weave in and out, this thing. 140 health, very good. It costs 2 energy, but flip 2 coins, it does 80 damage for each heads. this thing could theoretically do 160 damage, which will KO Mewtwo EX in a single hit. It's great against electric Pokemon. Actually, it really doesn't matter against electric Pokemon just because they conveniently have health such that it doesn't matter. But it's fantastic. It's amazing. This thing does so much damage, and if you get lucky with it, it's a truck. It's just an absolute truck. All right, I swept people with this thing. It's so good. It's so good. S tier. S tier because I actually did use it in a tournament. My first tournament. I didn't even have Sabrina. I didn't even have some necessary meta cards. I was using a fighting deck, which is considered awful, and I did really well thanks to this. Definite S tier card. It does have, 50% chance of doing 80 damage, which is, for 2 energy, that's not bad. For 2 energy, that's not bad. That's more than Golduck does for 2 energy. And it can whiff, but it can one-shot Mewtwo EX on a good day. Just poof, one-shot Mewtwo EX. Great card. Love it. S tier without question. Yeah, let's put that at the head of S tier. I might be slightly biased, but I had so much fun with this card. Mawile is a bit of a weird one. Definitely a weird one. It's a metal card, 70 health, 20 damage, flip a coin, if heads, discard a random energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. 1 retreat cost. I think this card is super, super undervalued. I think this is an amazing card. Because you have a 50% chance to undo their energy. Now, it's a little tricky, right? It's a little tricky because, first of all, if your opponent is set up, if they have a powerful card in front of you, getting rid of 1 energy doesn't matter. They'll just replace it next turn, right? They'll just replace it with another energy. I guess you could theoretically mess with Mewtwo EX a little bit if it's like, using its ultimate move, getting Gardevoir support, but I don't think it's that good. I don't think it's that good. And then if your opponent is setting up behind their active Pokemon, if they're setting up on the bench, you've got nothing to discard. So it sounds good, but there just aren't situations where you can use it, is the problem. Your opponent is not very often going to put any energy on their active Pokemon. They don't need to most of the time. Even if you discard it, it's not the end of the world. That being said, I want to add something to that that's very important. This thing still does 20 damage. With 70 health? That's not a bad effect. That's not a bad effect for doing 20 damage, harassing a little with a basic Pokemon. For like a starting out basic Pokemon, if you need to stall for some reason, this thing has options. It's an option. I don't think it's a very strong option, but it is an option. I think this thing is like the top of B tier, because it can do some fun stuff. There just aren't that many situations where the fun stuff applies. Okay, Fearow. So, flip a coin, if heads, discard a random energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. That sounds familiar. We've already seen this before on Mawile. Like I said for Mawile, a weak-ish ability. It's not that threatening. This is a stage 1 Pokemon. It's 2 energy to do this. It's only doing 50 damage. I don't think you're harassing the enemy that much. That being said, I think this is maybe a little bit better than Mawile in some ways. But worse in others. You have to evolve it from Spearow. That means you gotta have Spearows in your deck. I'm not feeling this card, really. I'm not feeling it. I think it's got similar problems to Mawile. There just aren't that many situations where discarding random energy from your opponent's active Pokemon matters, unless they're already set up and attacking you. It can be really good. It can be really good. You could prevent them from powering up your back line while you power up your back line. But whereas Mawile happens at the start of the game, or when you're already set up, Fearow would come in the mid-game, right? In the mid-game where you have an evolved Pokemon, you can put 2 energy on it, you're doing 50 damage, and by the mid-game, I don't know. I feel like by the mid-game, this matters a little more than Mawile, right? This matters a little bit more because, you're coming in, you're maybe last hitting something, or tapping something and trying to slow it down and slow down your energy, backing your opponent backing up energy onto their bench Pokemon. What was I saying? I could see this being a little bit more useful in just the timing of when it comes into the game, when it starts hitting, when you'd use a stage 1 Pokemon. But I still think it's not that good. I still think the damage is weak. 1 retreat cost is nice. It's got some nice features, but I don't know about this discard a random energy 50% of the time thing. I just don't feel like it's that powerful. I don't feel like it really shuts down your opponent unless you were already winning. Like, unless they were already energy starved. And if you're already winning, there are better things to do than use Fearow, you know? It's just kind of like a win more Pokemon. And coin flips should help you when you're losing. They should help you when you're losing, not help you finish a winning match. You know what I mean? So yeah, we're no, not S tier. We're gonna put this in B tier. I think it's all right, but I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't use it that much. All right, Persian. Flip a coin if heads, discard a random card from your opponent's hand. I like Persian. I think this is a fantastic card. Here's why. Meowth is a 1 energy card, and when you attack, it does 10 damage, not much, but you draw a card, so you get an extra card. Then you evolve it into Persian, give it another energy attack again, flip a coin if heads, discard a card from your opponent. It's 1 energy retreat cost. We've said that that's good. 40 damage. That's not great for 2 energy, but it's not nothing. But if you get heads, you could start deleting your opponent's hand. This is a very, very card-starved game. Alright, if you delete a card from your opponent's hand, that could be the War Turtle they need to get their Squirtle to a Blastoise, and now Blastoise is useless when they draw it next turn, right? That could be the Sabrina they need to mess with your strategy. That could be the red card that was going to remove the cards from your hand. Shadow Claw has the potential to be amazing. Now, would I use this in a competitive deck? Absolutely not. Way too risky. 50% chance this does nothing, you know, and you have to start with Meowth, and there's so many reasons. There's so many reasons why Persian's a little iffy in competitive PvP, but for casual play, this thing's hilarious. This thing could just destroy your deck, right? If it just gets 2 discards, it could mess you up so much. I think this is a very funny card. I'm gonna put it. I want to rate it very highly. I want to be clear. I'm not putting this in A tier because it's an amazing card. It's probably B tier in terms of power, but I'm putting it in A tier because outside of like competitive play, it's incredibly thematic, has great synergy with Meowth, which it evolves from, and could mess up your strategy, your opponent's strategy so hard that it's just hilariously powerful when you get very lucky. And I think that makes it a good coin flip card, even if it's not the best in PvP. Alright, Lickitung is dumb. How do I explain this? Lickitung could do infinite damage. This card could do infinite damage. Let me explain. You flip a coin until you get tails, and you get 60 damage for each heads. In theory, you could just do infinite damage. Now, we need to talk about this, alright? I'm going to put the stats on the screen. Because there's a 50% chance that this does nothing. Like a 50% chance this does absolutely no damage. Pretty bad, right? Pretty bad. And then there's a 25% chance that it does 60 damage. And then that's 1 out of 4. And then a 1 out of 8 chance that it does 120 damage, and a 1 out of 16 chance that it does 180 damage, and just one-shots, whatever the heck you want, right? But I think it's better to look at it like this. There's a 50% chance that it will do at least 60 damage. So a 1 out of 2 chance it does at least 60 damage. A 1 out of 4 chance it does at least 120, and a 1 out of 8 chance that it does at least 180. That's not bad. A 1 out of 8 chance that it does at least 180 damage? That's insane. And a 1 out of 4 chance that it one-shots Pikachu EX? What? 1 out of 4, it one-shots Pikachu EX? This is an amazing card. It's a stage 1 card. It's got a huge energy cost and a huge retreat cost, which makes it utter poop for PvP, right? But for casual players just looking for, you know, I want to win one game against a better deck, this card's amazing. Give it 3 energy, get really lucky, wipe out your opponent, and laugh. And you could do infinite damage. This card could theoretically do like 300 damage. I've done 300 damage with this card before. Yes, I've used this card before. It's so much fun. This is such a fun card, right? You have no idea how much fun this card is. So yeah, I think that this card is S tier. Not because it's particularly competitive, but because it meets the conditions of being an amazing coin flip card in that this is always a win condition. However, because the energy cost is so high, realistically, you can't afford to use this in a competitive deck. Retreat cost too, way too high. So top of A tier for sure. But this is such a fun card. You will have fun trying this card. I recommend it. A tier. Yeah, top of A tier for sure. So we talked about a lot about what makes a card good. A lot of health is great on a basic Pokemon. 100 health, right? 1 energy, Dizzy Punch, right? Flip 2 coins, it does 30 damage for each heads. But this isn't doing an average of 30 damage, but for a basic Pokemon with 100 health, doing an average of 30 damage is insane. This thing's better than Farfetch'd, okay? If Farfetch'd attacks this thing first, this thing will probably still beat the Farfetch'd. Actually, there are cards and stuff, but this thing will almost certainly beat the Farfetch'd. It's such a good card. Such a good card. It's got 100 health, it absorbs lots of damage. Its retreat cost is the problem. Its retreat cost is pretty bad. But people do use this in competitive decks just because it could theoretically do 60 damage. You just plop 1 energy on this, and then it can attack every turn and wall. And the idea is you set up behind it, right? You set up stuff behind it. You can't retreat it, and your opponent can Sabrina mess with you if you try to play this on your bench. So it's got some weaknesses, some big weaknesses. But it's a really good card just as an initial tank. So I think, without further ado, it gets S tier treatment. S tier treatment. It can definitely be used in PvP. And it is used in competitive. Aerodactyl. This is a funny card. Normally, I don't like things being stage 1 cards. You know, that's a big cost. But Aerodactyl is special because it evolves from a fossil. Fossil cards are weirdly good because if your opponent uses Sabrina on you, you can put in a fossil, discard it, and it's basically a free retreat. So, since it evolves from something that is actually useful almost in every deck, I think Aerodactyl is a little bit better, especially because it's a colorless card. So, this is a colorless card that can evolve from something that is useful in almost every deck that people use to thwart Sabrinas. It's a good card. Now, it costs 2 energy, which is unfortunate, you know. That's a bit of a high price. But 100 health, 1 retreat cost, okay. You know, so far its stats are alright. But flip a coin if heads your opponent shuffles their active Pokemon into their deck. I'm sorry, what? Flip a coin if heads your opponent shuffles their active Pokemon into their deck. What? What does that do? So if you use Primal Wing Beat on, like, a Blastoise, it just shuffles it away. That's hilarious. It undoes turns of work putting Pokemon out and putting energy on them. And it messes with your opponent's deck. It's hilarious. That being said, as a coin flip card, I don't know if this is any good because it doesn't do damage. Because this card doesn't do any damage, it's a little bit difficult to win with it, right? The way you win with this card is to keep forcing your opponent's cards back into their deck until there's nothing on their bench anymore. And then you automatically win, which is the most hilarious win condition of all time. I want to rate this thing highly just because it's so funny, and that it gives you a win con that nothing else in the game has. Putting your opponent's cards back in their deck so that their bench is technically empty, they have no active Pokemon, and technically they lose, is hilarious. That is the funniest way to win a match in the world, but it's not really useful. Realistically, unless you're fighting a hardcore Mewtwo only, like Mewtwo Gardevoir only deck, or a hardcore double Articuno only deck, you're not going to run into a situation where your opponent has no benched Pokemon that can just swoop in and attack this thing. Plus, it's weak to Electric, and I hate to say this, but Electric is the best type in the game right now. And Electric is also the type that has tons of benched Pokemon. So this thing gets destroyed by the best deck in the game. Like, just destroyed. Against Mewtwo's, it's kind of funny, but when you don't win the coin flip, you know, you just get wrecked. Still, the fact that you can put this in against a full power Mewtwo and have a 50% chance to take it and all its 4 energy off of the board, to remove 4 energy off of the board, is hilarious. This could do so much damage to Mewtwo decks. And then you spend the 1 energy retreat cost, back it up, and bring in something to fight. So it's got potential. It's got moves, it's got strategies, it's got a win condition, and it's funny. I don't think it's that good, but I think it could be really good. It's definitely hilarious, and if you get lucky, your opponent will probably concede out of sheer rage, as their cards are shoved back into their deck. So, I want to give it S tier status, but I think it's A tier. It's incredibly funny, and I think it has some potential in PvP. I don't know if it's competitive, though, but I will put it in A tier just due to its sheer power, and I've got to respect that. You knew it was coming. The last and most powerful of all Coinflip cards in Genetic Apex, the current booster pack for Pokemon Pocket, Misty. I am not going to tell you what this does before I show you what was done to me in my first ever tournament. My opponent apologized after this happened. This is footage from my first ever tournament. Okay. Because I want the professor's research to be reshuffled. Because I'm about to get red carded and there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah, red card is mind games. But they did dedicate 2 slots to it. So. Oh no, it's Misty! Oh, Misty. The game is going to be decided by this. No. No! I've lost. Yeah, that's, I've just lost. Nothing I can do. That's how Misty works. Very, very interactive. That... Yeah. Round 2, let's go! Alright. I'm going second. Lovely. Let's see if I immediately lose. Uh-oh. Yeah, if they get Misty, the fact that Misty doesn't have a limit, neither minimum or maximum, there is a limit. You can't have... Oh, here we go again. Please get Tails this time. Come on. Come on. You already got an instant win from Misty. You gotta be kidding me. What? That... Sure. I immediately lose. That's so fair. Okay, what the... My opponent responded, I'm sorry. So, the way Misty works is if you get Tails, she does nothing. Just nothing. Misty completely whiffs, and you get nothing. If you get Heads, you keep flipping until you get Tails. This makes Misty a very variable card. You've got a 50% chance of Misty doing nothing, a 50% chance of Misty giving you at least 1 energy, a 25% chance of at least 2 energy, a 1 out of 8 chance of at least 3 energy, and suddenly getting 2 or 3 energy, plus being allowed to attack on your first frickin' turn, which you normally can't do, is insane. That's outright insane. The fact that this card gives you the ability to attack on your turn is insane. But here's the problem. Misty isn't consistent. Misty cards, unfortunately, win rounds. As you saw, I was obliterated by bad luck. But for every good luck that the Misty player has, the Misty player has bad luck. And water Pokemon have really expensive energy costs, probably because they were balanced around Misty. So if you get Tails, you can't power up many of your Pokemon, and you will often lose. Really good Misty players will get around that with like a Starmie EX or something, but ultimately your entire deck becomes dependent on Misty. So unfortunately, I think that while Misty is an amazing card, Misty can't win tournaments because she'll whiff 1 out of 4 times. You'll get, 0 energy from Misty twice in a row, and you've locked yourself out of using other trainer cards while you used her. But when she's good, she just destroys you. And this is one of the reasons there's a big debate around Misty in the competitive scene as whether or not she's triple S tier or just S tier, whether or not she needs to be permanently banned or not. I'm gonna put her in triple S tier because I think as a coin flip card, she's the best. She gives you a chance to outright win the game before your opponent can take a turn. That is beyond busted. That is beyond broken. Nothing should do that. Nothing should let you win the game before your opponent can have a turn. Misty is the ultimate top tier triple S card, but weirdly enough, she's less competitive than some of the other legendary birds. Though she actually can be used with one of them, so I don't know how much that counts. So if we're taking a look at the top tier, it's very clear that Misty, Moltres and Zapdos EX, and regular Articuno are definitely some of the top coin flippers in the game. And for those of you who are like, why isn't Articuno EX on here? Because it's not a coin flipper. Anyway, it's clear that the legendary birds are definitely good in this game, and Misty can do some broken things despite just whiffing some of the time. I actually think that Zapdos EX and Moltres EX are more consistent than Misty and are better for tournament use. But Misty can still win you best of threes, and Articuno is an interesting wildcard. I'd like to see more of those. In the S tier, though, we've got the cards that aren't necessarily good, but could be if you're lucky. Marowak EX didn't win me the tournament, but it won me some games for sure. Jolteon, Pinchurin, and Kangaskhan can do the same, and Kangaskhan's even a meta card. As we get into A tier, we get cards that are probably a little more gimmicky. Lickitung could do infinite damage if you're willing to pay the energy cost. Aerodactyl could win you the game if you're lucky. Kingler, Pinsir, Gooler, all these cards have some pretty big weaknesses that make them just not quite good enough for tournament play. But they're fantastic for lower level play or in formats where the best cards are banned. I think Exeggutor EX even does show up in some tournament grass decks. The A tier is hilarious cards that are either all around good, really powerful, or great cards that help newer players that don't have better cards yet win games against the best decks some of the time. I can't promise you'll win most of the time with these cards, but you can win some of the time, and that's what makes them fun. The B tier is a little bit less consistent. Cards with bigger problems, cards that just aren't that great, and cards that have powerful abilities but might not really win you games. I don't hate the B tier, I don't love them, and I think that if you're using cards in the B tier, you might have problems once in a while. And finally, the C and F tier make me wonder why these cards exist. Seaking and the Little Goat just are not good, and there's not much more to say about them. How lucky have you gotten with coin flip cards, and which is the best? Which is your favorite? Let me know, and if you like this video, maybe I'll make one for the next set of booster packs. Alright, I'll catch you later.